5th of April 2026. And currently it's 2:02 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And here with us is myself, the chair, and Dr. Sri Banerjee, committee member, Dr. Zin Twig, and then student John Huth, and he'll be presenting on geospatial chronic diseases and natural resources. All right, you can go ahead and get started.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming to see me on a Easter and spending some time with me. The presentation is Geospatial Predictors of Diabetes in Central Appalachia, and it is for my PhD in public health epidemiology. Next slide.
Oops.
Ooh, 2 slides. Now we're flying. So a little bit of background, which we've seen before, but I'll go through it really quickly. Over 38 million people were diagnosed with diabetes in 2020, and that was actually increasing at an increasing rate. Last time I checked, it still was. Diabetes is an expensive disease for an individual with over $412 million in both direct and indirect medical costs as of 2022. The diabetes belt is actually fully enclosed in Appalachia, so it makes Appalachia a good study ground, actually. And West Virginia is fully enclosed in Appalachia, and it's the only state that is, and so it was a good proxy for Appalachia. Also, roughly 16% of West Virginian adults have been diagnosed with diabetes. And we know that human diseases and conditions are often associated with environmental exposures and contaminants in specific geographic domains. Next slide, please. So the gap in the literature. Diabetes investigators typically look at behaviors and built environments, social factors, symptom mitigation, diet, physical activity, socioeconomic status, genetics and molecular pathways. But this study that I performed was looking to change that focus and actually include these macro environmental landscape and latent factors associated with diabetes in Appalachia. And this is really an initial step to identify environmental remediation and mitigation strategies that could be employed after some ground truthing. Next slide. So my problem statement is, since diabetes is the 7th leading cause of death in the US and diabetes rates in Appalachia are 1.4 times higher, again, this is why I'm actually interested in the diabetes belt for this particular thing. And West Virginia in particular, in Appalachia, has high levels of poverty, an aging population, and usually has lower education attainment compared to the rest of the United States. Next slide. So environmental contaminants have been linked to chronic diseases, including diabetes. And usually we see studies that include things like metals and non-metallic ions and things that are often found in environments in Appalachia, specifically through mining and other practices, including forestry. So Appalachian counties have limited diabetes screening, and current strategies seem to inadequately kind of address diabetes because they really just kind of focus on that post-diagnostic strategy and don't actually look at like preventative macro scale type solutions. Next slide. So to investigate this, I modeled the individual and collective associations between the geospatially dynamic environmental factors. Yep. And there's a suite of variables, and the dependent or outcome variable was diabetes cases per capita. And the independent variables were distance to mine, landfill, distance to water, distance to impervious surface, also mean annual precipitation and temperature, and forest classification. And then we added a covariate in the second model of county median income. Next slide, please. So research questions. Research question 1 is distance to mine, distance to landfill, water, impervious surface, and mean annual precipitation, mean annual temperature, and forest classification independently and collectively associated with cases of diabetes in Central Appalachia. And the second research question is that suite of variables associated when also controlling for median income. Next slide. Here's the hypotheses. So the null is there's no significant independent and collective association between the independent variables, and the alternative is that there was a collective association between the independent variables. Next slide, please. And the same thing for model 2, between the independent variables, there's no significant independent and collective association between the variables when controlling for median income, and there wasn't a significant independent collective association between the variables when controlling for median income. Next slide. So the conceptual or theoretical framework is spatial epidemiology, and it's basically the same approach that John Snow took way back at the beginning of epidemiology. One of the great things about that is that it expands that traditional kind of epidemiological concept by of individuals in time, adding the concepts of geographic place. So place kind of becomes, it matters in the GIS things. And you used geographic information systems. Boy, I'm trying to stutter like there's something to know tomorrow. To conduct spatial analysis and overlay the social and environmental independent county level variables. Next slide. So the method is quantitative. As I said before, I'm going to model, and I did. And I was looking for those collective associations between geospatial dynamic environmental factors and diabetes. It's a cross-sectional ecological design. This design was chosen because it allows for the determination of possible associations between variables to support surveillance and targeted intervention planning. Next slide, please. So the sample size, obviously, diabetes prevalence in West Virginia, and that's an actual map of the prevalence of the different counties. And so again, using a secondary data source and using the U.S. diabetes surveillance system for those numbers. And then the G-power calculation was done, and I needed a minimum of 52 counties for a moderate effect size and an alpha of 0.05 and power of 0.95. And what I did is I plotted those diabetes prevalences into that actual map. Next slide. So inclusion exclusion criteria is pretty simple. You had to be in West Virginia, and you needed to be 20 years or older and diagnosed with diabetes. Exclusion, you didn't meet that criteria. Non-West Virginian, under 20 years and not diagnosed with diabetes. Next slide. Data analysis was performed in IBM SPSS version 30. And multiple linear regression was performed, allowing for overall fit and relative contributions of all the independent variables. And variation in the DV can be explained by the IVs. So ArcGIS was used to calculate all the distances from centroids and all of the environmental data that we used, and or that I used. All layers were maintained at 30-meter resolution, which is kind of important to maintain that resolution so you avoid things like the coastline paradox, which would have different sizes at different ratios. So next slide. All right, results. The grand reveal, some descriptive results. I could give you a couple seconds to take a look through this, but you know, there's nothing, you know, particularly extraordinary about this. There's a little bit more heterogeneity in the environment than I suspected in West Virginia, but all in all, it was mostly the same. And then you can see down there at the bottom, the median income is pretty low for a state. Next slide. So model 1 results. Nothing was statistically significant. So you can see the P is 0.528 and the R squared is just 0.14, and then the adjusted, again, there's no individual predictor or collectively were statistically significant at an alpha 0.05, although distance to mine had the largest standardized effect in the model, which you can see, what is it, 4 or 5 sections down. Next slide. Nothing really changed in Model 2. It got a little bit better by adding income, explained a little more variance, but it was an awfully modest explanation. It still remained insignificant or non-significant, excuse me. And yeah, there's not much I can really say about that. So next slide. So here's the summary fits and what I think the key findings for this actually are, which is, again, there's no statistically significant independent predictors from either model, and adding median income, again, improved the R-squared slightly, but from 0.14 to 0.18, but again, it still remained non-significant. Distance to mine showed the largest standardized environmental effect in both models, yet remained well below, or it was below significant threshold. And the pattern is kind of more consistent with attenuation of signal than with a strong county level environmental signal. So that's kind of a little bit hopeful. So next slide. And so as we go to interpret these findings, what does the model suggest? The model suggests that county level environmental predictors didn't explain diabetes cases per capita strongly, and regression slopes were shallow and coefficients were small. Findings are more compatible, again, with weak macro scale signal than with non-environmental relevance at all. And so why this might have happened, because centroids, although they mask people and they can give you a pretty good overlook, it's kind of coarse still. And so with that, and with any county heterogeneity, we probably, by aggregating that information, we probably missed a lot, or I probably missed a lot of the nuances. So localized exposure pathways may not be detectable is another thing from a county scale, like ecological level. So next slide. So here we have some limitations. Obviously, the ecological fallacy, which there's not much you can do without on this one. Aggregation bias, which I think kind of occurred by aggregating the data into the centroids, and the cross-sectional design. And the implications are really that this is a reproducible GIS framework for chronic disease work, and it does support targeted level dynamic exposure. And I think it could be used for shifting, and it does shift the focus to upstream. Next slide. However, and the social changes and implications is primarily that we're trying to serve deprived areas or underserved areas, and use a predictive spatial model, which is cost effective for all resource allocation. Next slide. So what are the conclusions from this? Again, no environmental predictor was statistically significant. County level geospatial models may have underestimated the localized environment. But the take home measure here is that scale actually matters in this. And so with better scale, I mean, getting down closer, better scale on the actual diagnoses, so getting point data. What we find out is that a null county level is not null everywhere. And so future work, look at that finer resolution and exposure data. So get in a little bit closer, go from maybe county level to tract level. And there's a few other things that I think would have been really good to have done in this. For example, I didn't look at because of how coarse it was, I didn't actually look at stand age, because that matters in its ability to be an ecosystem source of cleaning contaminants. Older forests do a poor job, younger forests do a new job, and including things like NRCS data, which is soil data. So, what horizon do we have? But that would be more applicable if we had the actual point data for it. And a surrogate to point data going forward might be to actually use something similar to a heat map, where I'm actually looking at polygon to polygon measurements as opposed to point to polygon from a centroid. The other thing that I thought about doing is that we might be able to, or I might actually end up weighting the centroids so that they're closer to um, um, the settlement patterns. So where is the settlement in that state? Weight the centroid X amount so that it gets closer to that. The problem ends up being is that it then dismisses um, kind of how people settle in West Virginia. If you're ever there, you'll find that people settle in the valleys, and there's specific conglomerates of people. And so we're kind of missing that. And then the other thing that I kind of left out, that because of how coarse it was, because there's no way to do that with a centroid, would be to use something called landform index. So what's the shape of the geography, or the geology, excuse me, and is that contributing to these things? So there's a couple extra things with a little bit more detail, if I zoom in a little bit closer, that might actually do it. And then there might be some differences too by changing the actual outcome variable. Again, but yeah, that's it. That's my presentation. And I would like to, thank Dr. Banerjee and Dr. Tway for putting up with me through this entire process and being here on Easter. Thank you.
Presentation and wonderful graphics. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Tway, and then I'll ask some questions, give some comments.
Sure.
Okay. Thanks, Ree. Hey, nice work, John. It's
Thanks.
nice work, and I really appreciate the insight into what you might do next round, understanding the limitations of this current study. One thing I noticed is that when you reported the data, you did not report the 95% confidence interval. And I was wondering why.
Oh, there's no reason. An oversight. That was it. Just an oversight. There was no reason for it.
This is where I beg to differ. The 95% confidence interval actually is a population estimate versus the beta, which is essentially the point estimate for your sample. So, even though you have, I believe it's every county, right?
Two of them, two counties got dropped off because they were doing something statistically just walkout. So they didn't actually meet the parameters for the multiple regression. So I data cleaned two of the counties. It could have been 55.
Yeah, but you essentially have the entire population.
Yeah.
Okay. Which, when you have an entire population, you actually, this kind of goes back to the 95%. If you have the entire population, you don't have to give the confidence interval because that goes over a period of time. So it's just one of the things that come up, because when you're presenting, you got somebody in the audience like me who's going to ask that question. So
I appreciate it.
Just something to think about. In terms of the diabetes in itself, I know this wasn't part of your study, but do you know the trends over time? Has it increased or decreased for this area?
It's increasing at an increasing rate.
Increasing. Okay. And then,
and the other thing is that I forgot to point out in the presentation was that if you there was a limitation with the mine data. The mine data is current mine data. It's not the bonded mines. And what I mean by that are, the U.S. government has a bond on all of these areas, and when they're released, it's set back into a natural state. And so I know for a fact from studying in this area and doing other projects that they don't exist on that map. And so I need to actually account for those, because there's still areas that have lechet pools and compacted soils, and and it's just not there. And so some of the actual counties don't have mines. So that kind of helps pollute but they do. They all have them, but some of them are in that bonding stage. So they don't actually show up on the maps, which curiously changed. How do I say this delicately? Recently. Recently,
see.
they've changed. So,
So they
yeah,
were mine. Those locations were mines previously. They're just not
yeah,
mines now.
right, right. And so they'll have all the metals and benzenes and everything that's used
Mm,
in that soil, but they're not accounted for because this is what is the approved government
gotcha.
map.
Makes you wonder if somebody did this study before to say, okay, the way this map looks, there's no
Yeah,
statistical significance. They can't
yeah,
blame the
yeah.
government.
That's right. That's right. I can't be. I'm not right. There's no
This might be the
genius
last time we
here.
see John.
Well, it's funny you say that because I was nervous this entire time. I am surrounded by the friends of coal. So,
Okay. All right, John.
um,
Just last
yeah,
question.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Over your dissertation journey, what did you learn about yourself?
Resilience. I'm more resilient than I thought. This has been so this project for me, I thought was going to be relatively easy, to be perfectly honest. And between having issues with getting some of the data when I got it and getting through the proposal and explaining some of what's happening to people who, I always thought that I talked in plain terms. Well, apparently I don't. So I've learned that I need to step back and take a look at that and realize and have patience and humility to make those explanations and the time to do it. And then the other thing is I'm a bit better at this than I thought I was. Again, I'm not a super confident person if you couldn't tell. So yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to give it to Sri. All good.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
John.
Thank you.
I appreciated Dr. Zinn's comments on the confidence intervals. That was great.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, yeah, I recently did a presentation at APHA about diabetes and anxiety. And one of the things that I showed between 1990 and 2000, even 2020, was the increase on a geospatial level within the US. So that was a good question. And I think that was worth discussing. So thank you for that. I was going to ask you what type of weighting, I know there's multi-scale geographic weighted regression,
Hmm.
which weights, like there's bands, and I think we talked about this,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
the
We have.
neighboring, yeah, and some of them have more, some of them. Have you explored into some sort of technique similar to that?
Yeah. Uh, I haven't played with it. But yes, actually, I have played with it, and the interesting thing, one of the interesting things that comes out of this too is, and I should have said that too, is that those political boundaries, boy, they don't matter.
Mm,
It's a good way of because you have to get the data, for the county or that particular area. But the problem is that like most biology, biology doesn't care where the border is. And so when you start looking at where the placement is and kind of where those hot spots start showing up as you start trying to, you find that again, we pop over borders. That becomes a little bit chaotic and a little bit interesting. And the polygons have some really odd shapes. But then if you factor in landform index, which I don't know if I've done an adequate job of explaining what that is, but basically it's how steep a slope is. It's often used in determining water sources and hydrology and things, which is another thing you could do is map that with ephemeral water supplies. But if you factor in LFI, you start seeing that again. That's where you start seeing shapes that seem to indicate that aligns maybe more closely with the settlement patterns of West Virginia.
okay.
So
Well,
there are some. I may have been drawing distance to mine and distance to forest locations from literally just the wrong place because it's kind of arbitrary to stick it in the middle of the county polygon, which is what centroids do. And so by weighting them towards those particular areas and doing exactly what you said, Sri, it seems to like it would clean it up a bit. Um,
yeah.
so
Yeah,
But
no,
at some
that's
point, I also feel like I got to be careful because of my data mining. You know what I mean? I mean, look at me? Look at me. I'm a modern kid, 6'7", right? Where's the boundary between these things? You know,
yeah.
so.
So you talked about, I think you briefly alluded to census tract level versus county level, the granularity, things like that. Would you expect the results to be different on a census tract level? I know there's more granularity there.
Mhm.
How would there be differences?
It really has to do with where you're measuring to and from. So those values change pretty wildly.
Yeah.
So and you're really trying to match. It's this kind of it's almost artistic, where you're almost trying to match the granularity of the method that you're using as a representation for this population in that county to the actual measurement to those things. They absolutely matter. When I've done wildlife populations and wildlife diseases, you see wildly different wildly. It's not that wild. So you do see at least differences where it could pop between being significant and not significant.
Yeah. The reason I was asking is because I was looking at some gun violence data and they had some point level data and wanted to kind of match that to income and race
Mm-hmm.
and things like that for controlling for covariates. And we initially thought that we're going to look at the zip code level, but how many zip codes are there in a county? Because it's in a city. So you
Yeah.
didn't have that many. So we have to go more granular into the census tract level and
Yeah, and
uh,
the
abstract
other
that.
problem
So,
the other
mhm.
problem with zip codes is that again that's kind of that's a U.S. postal. That's what makes sense to the U.S. postal system. That doesn't have necessarily that social or biological inference to it. So these groupings make it kind of difficult sometimes to suss. It's almost easier to do this in a wildlife setting because
Yeah.
elk don't care where they are, right? And
Yeah.
and the way the numbers are reported, it's not necessarily inside of county one or county two. It ends up becoming statewide. And then bam, right down to the specific locations and patterns. The other thing I'd really like to do, by the way, since we were talking about that, is so it is really it's not easy, but there's the data exists to actually look at the trends of what those forests look like over time, what the water looked like over time. And so there is the ability to get some sort of time bound in it if I could get the exposure data to match that. The problem ends up being is when was the outcome variable measured versus when was the
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And
But
that's another good point. Yeah. Go ahead.
I've started playing with it already. I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe that's bad, but
But that's good, Dr. Zinn, it bringing up that trend between the time. So the spatio-temporal sort of aspect of that is the movement. And if you, I know in one of the APHA presentations that I saw, they showed the map in that progression. So you see that trend and go up and go up, and that was kind of cool to see that. So yeah, the point that was made up was brought up is great. I know I talked to you, I tell you about ecologic fallacy, right? So how do these findings represent the individual, or does it even like?
I I just don't. I don't. Again, since there's not much really happening there, I think it's really difficult. It would be really difficult to come up with any kind of an individual plan. This is all just so far out, so granular that I think. Correct me if
Useful.
I'm wrong. I think we
Mhm.
stayed way clear of that. I think that problem really becomes an issue if I ever get my hand on point data.
Yeah, yeah. It was like this is very difficult. Even the gun violence, like and I'm bringing that up because because that's one of the grants I'm working on.
Mhm.
Even that, there was point level data of the individual incident, but then in order to match it to any demographic variables, you're going to have to take it into a census tract, even though there was point level data.
Mhm.
But due to the parameters of each one of the variables, then you have to get less granular. And so. Yeah,
Mhm.
so this is a great presentation, and I love the graphics. The map was great, and obviously you use some various types of programs to be able to do this, and one of a kind. I've not seen many presentations like this, so I appreciate that. I know we had various phone conversations and
Yeah.
meetings and things like that, and so I'll be missing you in my
No.
post show.
Well, I mean, hopefully I'm not completely gone. I'll still
No,
haunt
no.
you. I'll still haunt you guys down. Hopefully, I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
no, no,
But
no. I mean, I know where you're going, Shri, and Dr. Tway just told me he's in Texas a lot, so I could still stalk you, right? So
He's gonna track us. He's got the spatial. He can
that's
track us.
right. That's right. That's right.
yeah, the good news is, from my end at least, I think you did do the requirements and well beyond. So that's good. And Dr. Tway, what's your opinion?
Oh, John met the minimum requirements and did exceed
And then
those
some.
minimum requirements as well. And I know, John, that sounds terrible, but that's really where we aim for. Just meet the
No,
minimum
no,
requirements.
competency is great, right? Competency. C's get degrees. Isn't that the saying?
Yeah.
So, oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Dr.
no,
Hugh,
I'm,
right?
yeah.
How
Ooh.
does that sound, Dr. Hugh?
So let me just say this, and reveal even more about myself if I haven't already. It's just amazing. So one of the reasons it took me so long to even get to this point is we'll go back to that self-esteem. And as the son of an immigrant family that migrated here from after World War II, yeah, 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 it's huge for me. It actually is. I kind of dawned. Remember the existential crises I was talking about? I was being quite real about it. So I have an 85-year-old mother who was actually in tears over the whole thing. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're very proud of you too, so
thank you.
so congratulations on this and
Yes. Oh, and
um
I may have a job.
yeah, that's right. So good luck on that new venture.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think you'll fit in quite well. So
yeah.
um all right.
Just
So
just enjoy this evening. Don't do anything tonight. Just enjoy.
Oh, I'm not.
Celebrate.
I'm
celebrate
not. Well,
Easter.
so and then the worst thing is I'm supposed to be so yeah, I was supposed to be on a plane to France.
You told me, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so but they're requiring me to go. So I don't know if you know this, Dr. Tway, I actually am a consultant for performance for cyclists for a few professional teams.
Oh, wow.
And they have one of their big races coming up in Paris-Roubaix here. And so I was supposed to be with one of the teams. They're paying my Walden bill right now. I want to get out. I really have to get out of it. I just anyways.
Yeah, I was supposed to be on a flight actually to Indianapolis today.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, that was
Yeah.
but that trip got canceled, which is why I'm actually home, which is why it actually all kind of worked out. It worked out great for me.
Oh
Yeah.
great. Oh, okay, good. So I was afraid that I had flubbed it up on you. So,
No,
but
not at all. Not at all. And then the bonus is that my wife gave me a hall pass for tonight so that
oh yeah.
I don't have to be
Yeah, I know.
it's
I
her
know.
mom is
There's
coming, her sister's coming, her aunt's coming, her cousin's coming.
yeah.
There's just too much Easter estrogen here, so I don't have to be here. I can go to work.
Wait, is this being recorded?
Oh yeah, it is.
Don't you let this out. No, yeah, that's what's happening right now. The whole gang is out of the house, doing the Easter thing, and I even got out of church services this morning. So freaking fantastic. I don't have to hear how I'm a horrible person, one more time. Although it's not that bad.
Well, now
But
you're
they're
Dr.
always
Horrible.
asking.
So
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, right. That's right. That's wow.
all right. Well,
That's going to
Congratulations,
be
John.
hard to get used to. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Yeah, and if I could, I will tell you, I will reveal that I will be into the new Dalmar bottle I had here in a few moments. So
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
All
Yeah.
right.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate all your help and tutelage. Oh, the other thing you were saying, what did I learn? I need to reach out more. I tend to try to tackle everything on my own, and that became evident too. I mean, even this 95% confidence interval thing, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So
It's okay. Create a network.
yeah,
A network of resources.
yeah. Well, I try to. Believe it or not, I'm an introvert. So you know how
Well,
that
you can
goes.
start with the two of us.
Exactly.
Start with the two of us, because honestly, when it comes to geospatial analysis, now I have two resources. The two of you.
Yeah, cool. Fantastic. Well, do you think do you think the publication bias of this not being a result would be an issue, or do you guys have any idea where I could go with this and try to get it published? Because I've been looking, and I mean, what I come up with has $1,100 and $1,500 price tags to it. So, I mean, I don't know. If you don't, it's no big deal. But I thought I'd throw it out there.
The fact that you've got non-statistically significant findings for mines as it relates to diabetes, I don't think you'll have a problem getting sponsors to help you publish that. That's not going to be a problem.
Yeah. Okay.
Because there's two sides to every coin, and now maybe it's the nefarious side that's going to give you funding, but
but come on,
happy to see something.
We all like a scintillating story.
Yeah,
that's right.
But no, but I don't. I think you'll still be able to find interest. It's really comes down to you made a lot of great points on how you've developed a model for others to follow for other diseases. Now, maybe in this one, for the diabetes, it's not statistically significant, but if you swap out the disease, it might be.
Yeah.
But you've created the model that others can follow. And so that's where the interest, I think, will be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that fills me with hope, because I always look at it and kind of, you know how the research bias can be. I mean, they look for the statistically significant results, and I get it. But yeah, okay. Well, thank you. That's encouraging.
It'll be all right. All right. Congratulations. I'm gonna let you both go. I'm gonna go back and take care of things. So have a wonderful evening tonight.
Yeah.
You as well, John. So it's good seeing y'all.
Yeah.
All right. Take care.
Bye. Happy Easter.
Happy
Easter.
Bye.
Bye.